So the purpose of this video is to give you guys an idea of what's involved in an installation on just a typical boat setup like this with 2 fish finders. Nothing fancy, just transducer, power cable, units, some optional mounts, and that's basically it. And the whole idea is to show you what's involved so you can make the decision if you want to install it yourself or hire somebody to do it. Now, we're filming this in mid-April 2024. At the present time, Radioworld does not offer any installation services. That's something will probably be changing soon, and by the time this video is on YouTube, it may even be something we're offering. The point is of this video just to give you an unbiased idea of what it's going to take to do an installation and if you should just hire someone to do it. So there's 4 things we're going to cover throughout this video, and we'll just basically just have a discussion about them as we go. And the biggest things you need to do an installation yourself is time, skill, knowledge, and tools. And if you have a few of those, it will definitely make your installation go quicker. If you have none of those, you're probably going to fall into the category of hiring someone to do it. So as we go along in this video, we'll show you all those things: time, skill, knowledge, and tools, and just have a little bit of a discussion about that so you can kind of understand what's involved. The first thing we're going to talk about is the time it takes to do an installation like this. You could be 4 to 8 hours depending on your knowledge and skill level to rig a couple fish finders on a boat, and obviously the transducers as well. And that's doing a good job of it. So as I said, all these things, they kind of tie in together. The more you know, the more skill you have, the shorter the time it's going to be. And when you're thinking about the time it takes to do the installation as well, not even just the physical work, but there's also all the research. So if you don't have a lot of that knowledge, you're going to be spending more time than someone else researching it, maybe watching YouTube videos like this one on what's involved, reading operators manuals and all of that. So when you go to a professional installer and they quote you $120, $130, $140 an hour, you have to realize all that time you're going to be putting into it, where's the value in that for you? And especially if you count all that research time. Going to a qualified person who does this every day, they're going to be able to do the job a lot quicker, and in the end it may save you a little bit of money. So the first part of the installation we're going to tackle today is going to be the transducer. And the nice thing with this boat is it actually has a transducer mounting plate on it, so we don't even have to drill directly into the transom. So that's one thing that's going to save us a little bit. Next, after that, we're going to be fishing the cable up and through and running a couple other cables while we're at it, network cables. One thing I want to talk about, just to kind of get an idea of the installer you may be hiring and just the quality of work that they're offering. Every installer, when they're running a cable, should leave a pull rope behind. So what we're going to do is attach this on to the cable, pull this cable through, or fish it through, I should say, with our wire fish or fiberglass rod fish up through the boat. This pull rope is now left behind in the boat. So the next time we're able to just use this rope to run another cable through. So we'll attach our second cable on there, put another pull rope on, so then the next time that's always in there. And to me, if an installer does this for you, that speaks volumes about the quality of the work that they're doing. They're really forward thinking, they're thinking ahead, they're hopefully doing a good enough job that you're gonna hire them again, and then really they're just making their job easier the next time. When you're installing these transducers, there's a lot to know. Like I said, this one already has this mounting plate, so we're not going directly into the transom. If you don't have that, you can purchase a mounting plate to put on there, and then if you do have to adjust the transducer, you're not going to be drilling more holes in your transom. This one already had a transducer mounted to it, so we'll see if we can use any of these holes. If not, it's not a big deal, again, because we're not going right into the transom. So you see these slots in here? You want to make sure when you're screwing it in that your screw is in the center of the slot. That will give you adjustment up and down if you do not get it in the perfect spot the first time. A friend of mine bought some units off of us and had a transducer professionally installed by his marina, and said when he got on plane he couldn't see bottom anymore. It worked fine when he was at rest, but on plane he couldn't see bottom. Transducer is mounted really high, so basically flush with the bottom of the boat. But the problem was, when they installed it, the screws were right at the top of the bracket. So that left us no room to adjust it without drilling more holes to drop it down. So that's why it's really important to get those centered. Okay, so we got those cables fished through, and another thing I haven't really mentioned is just the physical requirements of a job like this. My arms are a little cut up, and some marks on them just from reaching around and trying to fish up cables through and grab poles. It's definitely a job for people who are very flexible, we'll put it that way. But what we did is got the transducer cable up here, got our pull rope up here as well, like I mentioned. And one other thing, just kind of along the lines of that forward thinking and, you know, electronics always changing on boats. We also ran an NMEA 2000 line in this boat. So it goes to the back compartment. We'll run another one up to the front, and we'll have a section of T-connectors under the dash here. And that's something an installer may suggest to you, is just kind of future-proofing your boat. If they're already pulling a cable through, you know, another $50 or $70 cable, it's not costing you any more in labor because they're already there. It's a good idea to put that in. Down the road, if we ever add a Lowrance Ghost trolling motor to the front, we're able to connect that up through the NMEA 2000 network to the Lowrance displays. Then we can also add the Yamaha engine to that as well, where we can get all of our RPM, water pressure, engine hours, fuel economy, all of that information as well. It's a good idea if you're doing something like this to future-proof your boat with some networking cables. Then all it is adding T-connectors in, adding your sensors in the different locations, and you're all set. So the next portion of this installation that we're going to work on is the electrical. And electrical is something that can really scare people away. And this is kind of the skill portion of what you're going to want to do in a DIY installation. And if you have electrical skills, maybe you're an electrician working on 110 in residential or commercial, you definitely will have the skills that transfer to 12 volts DC systems. The theory and all that is very similar. Colors of wire are different, but the point I want to make is if you have skills with electrical, it will transfer to 12 volt DC. The thing is, though, you have to remember, in a marine environment, we're not going to be using Morettes to connect these together like you would a household outlet that's not going to ever see water or moisture. One story I can give you, I had a fella who purchased a radar. He used Morettes to connect it. He called up, said his radar wouldn't power up, and to top it off, he was in a saltwater environment, so that's just even more an area that's going to be prone for corrosion. So we tested his radar, worked fine, and kind of all along I told him it was his connection, because he did tell me he was using Morettes because he was an electrician and his wiring was perfect. Well, it turned out his wiring wasn't perfect. The connections with the Morettes corroded and he had that problem. So what you want to do is use waterproof connections. So if you're not going to solder them and use shrink tubing, just butt connectors, crimp down, and then shrink tubing over top of that. One thing Lowrance provides, we obviously got our power cable and our fuse holder. We have to attach the fuse to the red wire here, so that'll just go in line. They provide you with this crimp style connector. Okay, so that is to go on just like so. You crimp it down. Now, that is pretty much as is, not much any better than a Morette. It's still going to allow water to get in there if it's not covered with shrink tubing. So just keep that in mind. Even some of the stuff that's provided isn't always the best. So there's all kinds of mounting options out there, and unfortunately with the size of this 10-inch Lowrance HGS Pro that we're going to be putting on this dash, there's no way to mount it without using an optional mount. There's mounts from Scotty, Ram Mount, Trackstack, and we're going to be using the Geigertec mounts on these ones. So these are billet aluminum construction. They are fully anodized. They have interlocking teeth here at all the pivot points that allow micro adjustments. They're all stainless steel hardware. They come with the stainless steel hardware to mount your unit on the plate, as well as through bolting through the dashboard of the boat. So these Geigertec mounts are an awesome product. They're made in Canada, just up the road in Aurora, Ontario here. Definitely something to check out. They make all kinds of mounts, no matter what the setup you have is, whether it's an aluminum deep V like this, a bass boat where you might be doing a triple stack mount on the bow. Check them out, Geigertec. They're available also at radioworld.ca. One thing you always want to remember when you're fishing your cables up through the dash or wherever you're pulling them through, the biggest connector always comes up from the bottom first, and the last one that always goes in is your power cable. Even though it's a big connector like this, the power cable goes in last because you feed it down with this end. So we can just now go through our hole this way and not have to worry about putting that connector in. It'll just feed down through the dash like so. Then we'll make all our connections under the dash. All right, we're moving along on this installation now, and we basically got the console done other than the electrical. I'm going to do all the electrical at once. We're moving up now to the bow, where we're going to get the second HDS 10 unit mounted on the Geigertec Pro Series mount up here. And now, kind of what I want to talk about before we get into that is just the tools that you need to do these jobs. So basic tools, ratchet set, wrench set, screwdrivers, drills, good drill bit sets that can go into aluminum, high-speed steel bits are good. And then, there's a lot of specialty tools that will make the job just so much easier. When we were mounting the Geigertec mount at the console there, if I didn't have a right angle drill like this, there's no way I was going to be able to get in there to drill those holes, just because of the angle of the windshield and where it needed to be. So you're going to have to invest in a lot of tools like this. Another thing is a heat gun. You can use a cigarette lighter to do shrink tubing. A heat gun with this heat shield here that's curved to get the heat flowing all around the shrink tubing will do a really good job. Right angle crimpers are a must. If we have to get up into a tight location because of cable lengths, we don't have a lot of slack, we can crimp in very tight areas with those. Automatic wire strippers are great as well. So when it comes to the whole tool versus labor thing, this is kind of how I look at it. You're either going to pay somebody to do your installation who has all these tools already, or you're going to have to invest in a lot of tools in order to do it. So when you factor in the time it's going to take you, the money it's going to cost you, not just in the cables and the products you're going to be installing, but also the tools that you're going to be investing in to get the job done, you got to factor all that in when you're weighing the decision to do it yourself or have someone do it for you. All right, so we've got the units all wired up, powered up, mounted, pretty much into the cleanup phase. And as you can see, the boat's a mess. So that's part of the whole time thing as well. Just factoring in, it's probably going to take an hour to clean up and get all the tools organized again. What I want to talk about now a little bit is the knowledge aspect of this. We ran into several issues doing this installation. Just fishing some cable, there's no conduit in the back here up to the front, so we had to come down through the center and up. So that's not always typical, but we had to do it that way. We had to drill some extra holes into the floor of the boat to get into some compartments. So knowing your boats, knowing what's there, what's not there, obviously you don't want to be drilling into an area you don't know what's behind there, and you could hit your gas tank or a fuel line or something like that. That would just be a catastrophic error. So part of having that knowledge is something that really it speaks volumes of your installer, especially if they're trained. There's different organizations out there, NMEA, ABYC, and then just even the manufacturers, like Lowrance offers training to all their dealers, all their installing dealers. So always look for an installer who is certified by either NMEA, ABYC. Those are the two governing organizations that kind of oversee the standards of marine installations. And then on top of that, the manufacturer you're getting them to install on your boat, you definitely want to make sure that they're trained in that product, because there are nuances between the different brands. One other benefit of having your units installed by somebody who is trained by that manufacturer is a lot of those manufacturers will offer additional warranty on your product, and then they will also give you onboard support on some of their products. So if you run into an issue and it's under warranty, a lot of the times the manufacturer will actually compensate the installer to go to your boat to see what's going on. So that's basically the gist of what the install involves. I know we didn't show you a lot of how to do it, but it's more just kind of time wise. Basically, to give you an idea on the timing, we put the trolling motor on, rewired that this morning, put 2 new battery trays. That took about 2 hours. Getting the front unit on, powered up, all the cables fished, was probably another 2 hours, and then the same thing on the back. So we're looking at about 6 hours total on this right now. We still have a lot more to do on the boat. We got to install some chargers, a alternator charger, and a few other little things here and there. So a boat like this is probably an 8-hour install for a trolling motor, batteries, chargers, and 2 units. And there's no live sonar on this boat, nothing like that. So that's probably another hour or so, if not more, to put that on. So that kind of gives you an idea of the time frame. And keeping in mind, that's also with all the tools that we require to do the job. It will probably take longer, and those 2 guys doing the install for the most part. So thanks for taking a look at this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions, just let us know. And definitely want to thank Lowrance as well for sponsoring the installation of these in the video with these 2 HDS10 Pros. They're available at radioworld.ca, along with just about everything else we use, the Anchor wire, the Blue Sea switches and fuse panels that are hidden down behind here that we didn't show. Geigertec Mounts, all that's available at radioworld.ca. So check that stuff out and give us a call if you have any issues.